Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade. I've gotten a lot of questions recently from patrons, and I've been in a lot of discussions with them that have gotten me thinking about going back and kind of touching on a series of videos that I did much earlier in the channel's life, and that's about your long term investment theses. The idea behind this is that you need to have ideas in your head that control kind of the overarching rules and ideas behind what you're doing with your investing. And what are the biggest, long term, most weighty, and important ideas that you think are correct that will inform and be productive for your investing? And this goes for all kinds of investing. And so I've mostly developed mine from 20 years of stock market investing, but these several years that I've been over here in the TCG world, also, I've seen some ridiculous things, and the TCG investing world is absolutely ridiculous, and it kind of lends itself to its own little set of investing theses. So I wanted to talk about these, and um, one of the counterbalance to this is, or the other side really, is that you need to make sure that you follow the theses and you don't get caught up with the short-term stuff. The theses are supposed to be your long-term ideas, your weightiest, heaviest, most important compounding things that will matter more and more over time. Whereas the daily noise is the junk to ignore. Okay, so the first one of these that I really like is that populations are still increasing. They're going to continue increasing. I know developed Western countries, they've fallen below that 2.1 child per woman replacement rate. Some places like South Korea and Japan are really bad with the replacement rates there, but they're being made up for with places like South America and Africa. Some places in Europe are doing better. And so, overall, for the world, we're going to see overall populations continue to increase for at least probably another 50 years, which is longer than I'm probably going to live. So I'm not worried about population shrinking in my lifetime. And what does that mean to my investing? It means, one, there are growing markets for products. So the companies that are out there today, like Coca Cola, will have more people to sell Coca Cola to. And car companies will have more people moving into the middle class who want to buy cars. Things like that. So the markets will increase in size. And so the ability of those companies to do things productively will keep increasing over the next, say, 50 years. The other part that's really beneficial from it is more people means there's more brains on the planet solving difficult problems and working on really hard things and innovating, which creates value in markets. The second one is that long term winners build strong networks and typically continue to be long term winners. And so when you think of entrenched players in industries, Coca Cola, again, is probably a good one. I really had it intended for that, but that's kind of a good one. I mean, in oil and gas, you have Exxon and you have Chevron, and maybe you'd still say Shell and BP. They've fumbled a lot in the last couple of years, but certainly Exxon and Chevron, those are the big super majors, and they will probably continue to be the big super majors in the oil market. And you look at Magic the Gathering, it's the biggest TCG in the world. It's probably going to continue to be the biggest TCG because it enjoys all of these economies of scale. It can print cards the cheapest. It has a big staff of artists and writers and game developers and designers and all those middle management roles and everything else. It has the most adoption from everyone. And so it's unlikely that anything will unseat it in the near term. And so the risks to the big players are always long term. It's always those kind of gnawing things that eat out a company from the inside. So this kind of ties into something that I developed when I came over here to TCG investing, a idea I started working on and presented several times in some videos, and that's network value theory of TCG investing. And this is kind of a thesis that I have over here in TCG investing. It's that you look at that entire network surrounding a game. What is the company like that manages it? Who is in charge? What kind of decisions do they make? What kind of clarity do they have? How transparent are they, is what I mean. How many printers do they use? How many languages are they localized into? How many distributors distribute their game? How many card stores support them? How many players buy the product? Very importantly, how many people actually play the game? And so, what kind of secondary market support do they get off of places like TCG Player? Are they in the Direct program? That's a really big one that can really help a game if it gets added to the Direct program. I think there are still only 2 games, or did Flesh and Blood finally get added? I can't remember. So you look at this in its totality, and you will see which games have the most value, and you will see which games are still very, very speculative because of the lack of total network value. And that's why for my TCG investing, my money goes into Magic, it goes into Pokemon, and it goes into Flesh and Blood. Because I think those are really the 3 best ones that have proven out those things, that they can get themselves into card stores, they can get people to buy the cards, they can get world level competitive play going, they have strong YouTube presence for actual play videos. And so you have all the spokes of that wheel creating the network that supports itself. And that's that's the thesis that I use to evaluate a game over in the TCG investing sphere. And lastly, one of my large theses over here in TCG investing is the TCG expansion life cycle, which of course is generally an expansion or a product in general comes out, it spikes in price, people get their fill of it, the price starts to come down, it'll wave around a little as you get restocks, as the meta changes a little bit, things like that. Eventually it goes out of print, the price stays somewhat level, and then over time the quantity available starts to tighten up and the price starts to rise. And that I know that's not particularly controversial, but it seems a lot of people have trouble just identifying that most of these products go up in price over time, and that if you buy them and you sit on them for a while and then you sell them, you typically make money. And so people think that's somehow really controversial when you look at the idea that, hey, the quantity of sealed boxes of out of print products is only going down. But it kind of has to be put out there explicitly as a basic thesis for TCG investing. And so the big thing about all of this, the big thing again and again and again, I need to stop using that speech so much. The big thing about this is you need to learn to identify when you're being confused or dazzled or just having your time wasted with short-term noise. And I'll give you a good example. 5 or 6 years ago, every third article written in the financial press was about Tesla and would they make it and would the cars be any good and all this stuff. And there was this propensity for people to see Elon Musk go and tweet that he had just taken a dump. And they would be like, and then there would be an article written and it'd be like, Elon takes dump, Tesla moves 8%. And it was like, but why did Tesla move 8%? And it's like, well, it's because Elon took a dump and he tweeted about it. And it was like, in 10 years, will it matter that he had taken a dump at 9 a.m. on that day? And it's like, well, obviously no. And then it's like, well, why did the stock move? Why did people pay attention to that? Essentially, you need to learn that if it is not something that affects one of your long-term theses, you generally need to ignore it. Not always, but generally. So it takes a long time to kind of absorb these type of lessons, to get a feel for them, and to get enough experience in markets where you can say, okay, yeah, I'm calm, I have a stoic zen-like nature with my investments, and I'm happy to just ignore the noise. I'm happy to ignore that Dominaria Remaster collector boxes crashed to $120. In fact, I'm excited. I bought more. And when you reach that kind of state, then you've kind of achieved a level of happiness with your investments where you'll have a lot of fun investing in things. So think about what your long term theses are, and they won't necessarily match up with mine, and mine may turn out to be in whole or in part incorrect one day. Maybe one day I'll realize that one or more of them were wrong. That's possible. And maybe I'll add more as time go on, and you may disagree with mine. That's fine too. Let me know what you think, guys. Thanks to everyone who makes this content possible, especially my very generous supporters on Patreon who have all these great conversations with me about long-term theses. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and join me on Final Trade.